And we are back. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of No L's podcast. I am the host, Noel Tesfa. Episode 10 to be specific. Thank you, God. Double digits. You always got to be thankful for stuff like that, moments like this. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in, who continues to tune in. That love, that support, I appreciate it. Please continue to do so. Like, comment, subscribe, share, follow on all social media platforms. And I will do my best to reciprocate that love by giving you guys the best content that I can possibly give. Now, today's episode needs no introduction. We're going straight into the NBA Conference Finals. We're in the middle of each series. Well, one series, it looks like it's about over, but Spurs Thunder 2-2. From the jump, I thought this was going to be a classic series, and that's what it's looking like. So I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on Game 4, which happened last night. So I'll give you guys a recap of that game, some of my notes, what I saw, and then I'll give my big picture thoughts on the entire series since the last time we talked, only one game had been played. Now we're up to 4 games. So I'll give you guys my general thoughts on this series. And then we'll talk Knicks, Cavs. The Knicks look like they're about to sweep Cleveland. They're up 3-0 in that series. So I'll do a little recap of Game 3. That was 2 nights ago, so I won't spend too much time on it. But we'll talk a little bit of Game 3, what I saw in that game, and then my overall thoughts, again, like I said, for Spurs Thunder on the entire series. I don't think, no game had been played the last time I recorded an episode, so I have a lot of thoughts on that series. And then, yeah, that'll wrap up the episode. So hopefully you guys enjoy. Hopefully you stick around to the end. And now let's get into it. Oh, actually, before I do that, I have to give a shout out to Arsenal for winning the English Premier League in soccer. Look, I don't know a bunch of Arsenal fans in my life. I don't have a bunch of Arsenal fans in my life, but the ones that I do know, they're chill, they're calm, they don't do too much. I can tolerate them, which is why, and by the way, I am a Man U fan. We're not going to get into that, but that is why I can congratulate them. I can give them their props. Liverpool fans, City fans, get them out of here. You'll never hear me congratulate those guys on winning anything a day in my life on a public forum, privately, never. But Arsenal fans, you guys are cool. Well, it's almost been nearly 25 years since they won the Premier League. So, they deserve it. Enjoy this moment. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that little soccer segment for this episode because that's all I got for you. Now, let's get into the hoops. Spurs versus Thunder, Game 4 last night in San Antonio. Final score for this one, 103-82. Spurs take the dub in dominant fashion. Now, here's a recap of last night's game. To start, it was pretty back and forth. Isaiah Hartenstein is scoring for OKC. He had like their first 8 points, which was kind of weird. But he was like the only one that was scoring for them in the first half of the first quarter in this game. But yeah, back and forth, 8-7. And then from that 8-7 start, the Spurs go on a 16-0 run in the middle of that first quarter. And this is the second time they've done that in the past 2 games. In Game 3, they started the game on a 15-0 run. And then in Game 4, it was the middle of the first quarter. But essentially, both runs looked very similar in how they did it. It was suffocating defense, getting blocks, forcing turnovers. On offense, it was getting out in transition, hitting threes. Devin Vassell, Steph Castle, Wemby was involved. And it was a lot of deja vu, like, oh my goodness. However, in Game 3, the Thunder, being the championship team and semi-veteran savvy team that they are, they slowly crept back into it. And by the end of the first quarter in Game 3, it was very close. It was kind of the same thing in game 4. By the what early second quarter, the Thunder had cut the lead to 4, and it's like, oh, here we go again. The Spurs feed off the energy in the first quarter. They feed off the crowd. That's what gets them going. But the Thunder realize it's a 48-minute game, which is why they can slowly but surely come back. In game 4, the Spurs said no. As soon as the Thunder cut the lead to 4, the Spurs came back, and they did not let the Thunder take the lead at any point in that first half. I think with a minute left, the Spurs went on a 7-0 run, including a Victor Wembanyama half-court buzzer beater. And it's like, bro, I know I did my whole monologue on Wemby in the last episode, but this guy is just racking up moments and moments in this series where it's becoming undeniable how great he is. I was watching the game with my uncle, but he wasn't paying attention, so I had to rewind it for him. I'm like, yo, look at this. And you can assume what his reaction was because it was everybody's reaction. And that just goes to show younger generation, older generation, everything in between. Everyone can appreciate the greatness that Victor Wembanyama is playing at right now. But besides that, Spurs go on a 7-0 run to end the half. Wemby has 22 points at halftime. He's absolutely dominating the Thunder in every possible facet of the game. And the Spurs take a 12-point lead going into halftime. Now, the start of the third quarter is what I was focusing on the most for this game. It was what I was prepared to see how both teams respond. Because typically, if the Thunder are down at halftime of a game, those first few minutes of the third quarter is where they go on a run. They're forcing turnovers. Maybe the other team comes out of the locker room with not as much energy. The crowd is still not fully packed. People are still getting food, going to the bathroom from halftime. So that's when the Thunder pounce on you. And that's what I was expecting. So third quarter starts. Kayson Wallace hits a 3, and it's like, okay, here we go again. Cuts the lead down to 9. And the next 3 offensive possessions for the Spurs was probably the most important sequence of the entire game, at least in my opinion. And it went like this. Wemby, alley-oop, and one finish. He hits the free throw. Next possession on offense, Steph Castle comes down, bodies Chet Holmgren in the paint, hits a layup. Next possession, Steph Castle comes down again, spin move, layup. OKC calls a timeout. And that sequence right there, it made me realize the Spurs are not playing around in this game, because you would expect OKC to punch first, being that they were down. But no, the Spurs put their foot on the gas, ran up the score, and from that point on, the game did not even get close. In fact, by the middle of the third quarter, the Spurs ended up taking a 25-point lead. OKC went on mini runs here and there, but nothing to really put a dent in that lead. And essentially, the game was over by the third quarter. Shea did not play the entire fourth quarter. He finished with 19 points on 6 of 15 shooting from the field. And we'll discuss Shea as I talk about the big picture thoughts on this series. But in this game, Wemby absolutely dominated. He finished with 33 points. And this game showed me a lot about this young Spurs team, because this was the first time they've faced any real adversity in these playoffs. It was the first time they were down in a series. And it's against the defending champs. And they came out ready to play from the jump. Wemby was like, I am not letting my team go down 3-1 in this series with the game 5 in OKC. And I was really impressed with how they played on defense, on offense. They limited Shea again to another mediocre performance. And that is how we have a 2-2 series going back to OKC for a game 5, which is actually what I expected. I told my cousin, my brother, I didn't say it on the podcast, but I was expecting OKC to win game 3 and then the Spurs to be the desperate team and win a game 4, but you never know, and that's what happened. So that's my recap on game 4. Now let me get into my bigger picture thoughts of this series. First, Wemby has to be Superman for the Spurs to win this series. And what do I mean by that? In the 2 wins that the Spurs have in this series, game 1 and game 4, here are Victor Wembanyama's averages: 37 points, 16 rebounds, 53% shooting from the field, and here's the most important stat: 23 and a half field goal attempts. And I say it's the most important stat because it indicates that he is asserting dominance from the get-go. He's not playing no passive type of game. It shows that he's not as tired as he is in the other games. So the 23 and a half field goal attempts, 37 points, Vic has to do that for 2 more games in this series if the Spurs want a chance. Because in the 2 losses that the Spurs have, game 2 and game 3, here are Wemby's averages: 23 points, which is a 14-point dip from the wins, 11 rebounds, 51% from the field, and 15 and a half field goal attempts. So it's nearly a difference of 10 field goal attempts between the wins and the losses. So I think the Spurs are going to start realizing that. Wemby is going to realize that, and he's going to come out guns blazing in 2 out of the next 3 games at least in order for the Spurs to win. Because in game 2 and game 3, he looked a bit tired. Game 2 was understandable because he's coming off of the double overtime game in game 1, played over 50 minutes, the most he's ever played in his career. So I understand, like, he's tired first half, and then he would sort of pick it up in the second half, have a few runs, but at that point, the Thunder had already taken control of both those games. They were already comfortable. So I expect Wemby to assert that dominance in game 5, especially because he only played 31 minutes in game 4, and that's the least amount he's played in this entire series. So he'll have his legs, he'll have the energy for him to be dominant from the minute the ball tips up in the air to the end of the final buzzer. So that's my biggest takeaway from this series so far, that Wemby has to be dominant from beginning to end in these games in order for the Spurs to have a chance to win. My next biggest takeaway from the 4 games of this series is, when are we going to get the signature Shai Gilgeous-Alexander performance? Now, his averages in this series: 25 points a game, 10 assists a game, 25 points, by the way, a 7-point drop-off from his regular season averages. But 39% shooting from the field, 26% shooting from 3. Now, what do I mean by signature performance? Like in game 2, for instance, he scored 30 points, 9 assists, shot 50% from the field, had the biggest shot of the game with about 30 seconds left to seal it. But still, it didn't feel like a Hall of Fame SGA performance. And why do I say that? It's because in this series, you can tell Shai's letting the game come to him. He's being double teamed a lot. So he's finding his teammates. He's facilitating well, which is why he's averaging 10 assists a game. And he's not the type of player to force shots, take a bunch of bad shots. Again, like I said, he's letting the game come to him. But the reason I'm saying we're still waiting for that signature performance by him is because what Shai is so elite at, and what's made him the best basketball player in the world up to this point, in my opinion, is that he is a master at picking his spots and dominating for key stretches during a game. Like, he'll have maybe 12, 13 points midway through the third quarter, and then boom, he'll go on like a 7-0, 9-0 run by himself. Mid-range shots, step back threes, getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line. So you can tell he'll have like one or two stretches like that in a game where he shows, okay, I'm here. I'm the best player in this game, and this is going to propel my team to a win. He has not done that yet in this series. As good as he was in game 2 and even game 3. In game 3 he had 26 points, but a lot of those points came from the free throw line. So but yeah, we just have not had that signature performance for him yet, and it's all lined up for him in these next 2 out of the 3 games, because the Spurs made a little bit of an adjustment in game 4 where they weren't double teaming him as much, or at least hard doubles. Like the help was still there, of course, but they weren't leaving guys as open as they were throughout the first 3 games, because obviously the Thunder role players were knocking down shots. So this is lined up for him in the next 3 games. He has to have 1, probably 2 signature performances if the Thunder are going to win, because the Spurs are not double teaming him as much, and he needs to show why he is the reigning back-to-back MVP, reigning back-to-back finals MVP and champion in these next 2 to 3 games. And if Shea is able to play Wemby to a draw, and they essentially like cancel each other out, because to be honest, Wemby has been better than Shea in this series. But if they play to a draw, if Shea plays Wemby to a draw in 2 out of the next 3 games, I can't see the Spurs winning, because that's the last thing that's missing for OKC. They won 2 games without Shea being the best player in this series. So now this is his moment to take it home, because he is the only one that can stop this freak of an alien from winning his first ring and dominating the league for the next 10 plus years. So game 5, game 6, game 7, 2 out of those 3 games, I am expecting Shea to absolutely go off. And my final major takeaway is that this series has really highlighted just how elite the Thunder role players are. Between Alex Caruso, Kason Wallace, Jalen Williams, Jay Will, and Jared McCain, like, they have been playing out of their minds, because when you look at Caruso, in the first 3 games, he averaged 21 points and over 4 threes per game. Games 1 to 3, he had 0 points in game 4. In game 2, Kason Wallace hit 4 massive threes, and I swear it felt like each one of them was worth 5 points, because anytime the Spurs made a run and it looked like they were getting close in that game, Kason Wallace hit a 3 and then another 3 and then another 3, including a clutch one with about 2 minutes left in the game. And he has had his moment. Jared McCain, 24 points on 10 of 21 shooting from the field in game 3. He took 21 shots. Yo, the confidence that you have to have inside of you to take 21 shots off the bench in game 3 of the conference finals, when you are a mid-season acquisition, like, I gotta respect him. But he only had 4 points in game 4. And then finally, Jalen Williams, he had 18 points on 5 of 6 shooting from 3 in that game 3 win. Only 3 points in game 4. So my point is, the OKC bench players and role players have had a massive impact, especially in the wins for the Thunder. They had 76 bench points in game 3. That's the 5th most in NBA history. And they've really been helping Shea out, and especially considering the fact that J-Dub, Jalen Williams, hasn't played since game 2. Like, he was out after the first quarter of game 2. So the role players have stepped up in the wins, and that's what the Thunder have needed, because the Spurs game plan is obviously to double team Shea. and Shea's doing a good job of finding those guys. In game 4, they couldn't hit anything, and that's probably the biggest reason why the Thunder lost by 20. But if the bench can do what they did between games 1 and games 3, if they can replicate that, and if game 4 is just an outlier, and then you combine that with Shea having one of his signature performances, the Thunder shouldn't lose this series. As great as Wemby has been, and the moments that Steph Castle has had, De'Aaron Fox has come back, the Spurs are right there, but I still think the Thunder have just enough to at least win this year's series. Going down the line, I don't know. I'm not that so Raven. I can't see the future. But for this series specifically, I think the Thunder, as the series goes on, I think their championship DNA is what's going to be able to propel them. And I still have the Thunder winning in 7, like I said. But man, what a series this has been. And hopefully it continues to be that for the next 2 to 3 games. So that's what I have on OKC versus the Spurs. Now let's get into the Eastern Conference Finals matchup between the New York Knicks and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Knicks up 3-0 in this series. And sorry, Cavs fans, it's looking like it's about to be a sweep. Now, how did we get here? Game 3, I'll give you guys a little recap on that one. It was the most recent game. Final score 121-108. Knicks win in Cleveland. And they just came out like the more desperate team, which is weird because how is the team down 0-2 with game 3 on their home court? How did they come down? How did they come out as the less desperate team? It made no sense. Knicks start the game 9-1. They take a double-digit lead. At the end of the first quarter, shoot over 70% from the field. Like, they could not miss. Karl Anthony Towns had 11 points in the first quarter. Second quarter was probably the best that the Cavs looked, and that was more the Knicks' fault than the Cavs' fault. The Knicks just became stagnant on offense. They were committing turnovers, and Cleveland was able to tie the game in that second quarter, but again, the Knicks just kept coming. They take a lead going into the halftime. Third quarter starts. Again, the Cavs look like they're not ready to play. 6 turnovers in the first 5 minutes of that third quarter. Knicks take a massive lead. And for Cleveland, it's like they just could not generate good looks consistently. Everything seemed difficult on offense. They just couldn't get any type of easy looks. And part of that is the Knicks defense. But yeah, the Cavs just, and it looked like they ran out of gas by the fourth quarter. Donovan Mitchell couldn't go on one of his signature runs. Landry Shamet comes in that fourth quarter, hits 3 just clutch threes. He had 11 points in the fourth. Jalen Brunson had 9 points in the fourth. And the Knicks just kept extending their lead. And the Cavs couldn't get stops. When you combine the fact that they couldn't generate good looks consistently in this game, and then they couldn't get stops on the other end, it's a recipe for disaster, and that's why they're down 3-0 in this series. The Knicks had 6 players in double figures. Again, it's just a complete team effort led by Jalen Brunson, who had 30 points in this game. Mikal Bridges has been like, isn't even the word. He finished with 22 points. And that leads me to my biggest takeaway from this series, which is the Knicks can legitimately win the NBA championship. Now, when the playoffs started, I did not think there was any chance in hell no team from the Eastern Conference would be able to beat either the Spurs or the Thunder. That's why I always thought was coming out of the West. And I thought nobody from the East had a chance, whether that be Boston, who some people were picking. I don't know why. Clearly, I was right about that. But whether it have been Boston or Cleveland, Detroit, who I picked, the Knicks, like these, and the Knicks were a viable option to make the finals. So that's not a shock. But what they've done, not only in this series, but this entire playoff run, they haven't lost a game in a month. They played a month of basketball in the playoffs, the hardest time of the year. They haven't lost a single game. They have the largest point differential in NBA history in the playoffs over a 10-game span. 225-point difference. They're winning every game by double digits. Role players are stepping up. Josh Hart is having career high games. Landry Shamet, who I just mentioned, Mikal Bridges, OG. All of these players are stepping up when their number is called. And when you combine that with the fact that this OKC versus San Antonio series looks like it's about to be a 7-game war, bloodbath, just physical. And I think whoever comes out of Spurs Thunder is going to be beat up, not 100%. Maybe guys are injured. And that bodes well for the Knicks because they're about to dispose of Cleveland with swiftness, either a sweep. At the most, it's going to go 5 games. So the Knicks are going to be rested while the Thunder and the Spurs are beating the shit out of each other. And it's lining up. Look, let me be clear. I still don't think the Knicks are going to win the championship. However, this is the first time where I believe there's an actual chance that they can win. Before, I did not think there was a chance they could be OKC or the Spurs. Now, like, it's undeniable what they've done over these last 10 games, how they've looked like the best team in these playoffs. So I have to give them their credit. They are a legit, not finals contender. They're a legit championship contender. And that is the biggest takeaway that I have from this series. The next major takeaway I have from this series is that this is a prime example of how there's so much more that goes into winning a playoff series than just talent. Because when you look at it, the Cavs and the Knicks are very evenly matched talent-wise. I mean, I would say the Knicks have a bit more talent, especially on the front end. But between Mitchell, Harden, Mobley, Allen, Sam Merrill, Dean Wade, Max Strus coming off the bench. Let me not include Dean Wade because he has been a disgrace to the name Wade. But Sam Merrill, Max Strus, Dennis Schroeder, like these are talented players. So they match up well with the Knicks talent-wise. But when you talk about coaching, like schemes, game plans, in-game adjustments, game 1, when the Cavs were up by 20 points, 22 points, whatever it was in the fourth quarter, the fact that on one end, Mike Brown realized, okay, we need to get James Harden onto Jalen Brunson in these switches, and then we'll just attack him. And the fact that they did that possession after possession, while on the other end, Kenny Atkinson basically froze up, did not call any timeouts in that stretch, or he might have called one, and didn't make any type of adjustments, didn't take Harden out of the game or find a way to put him in the corner or double team Brunson. Like, there was no in-game adjustments in that game 1, which is why the Cavs lost. So coaching, that's one thing that goes into winning a series like this when the two teams are evenly matched talent-wise. Another thing is everybody on the team buying into their roles. Like Karl Anthony Towns, the fact that he has become an elite defender. Yes, I'm saying elite. The way he's playing on defense has been elite the last 10 games or so. So him becoming an elite defender, a really great passer and playmaker off the top of the key while guys are cutting and there's different actions going on. The fact that become a great playmaker, he has bought into a role where it's like, all right, Cat, we don't need you to be a 30-point per game scorer with 20 rebounds. We just need you to play amazing defense, make plays for your teammates, and when it's time, hit a few shots and be like a 20 and 12 guy. And that's what he's done. Mikal Bridges, when it's time, he hits the big shots. Landry Shamet, same thing. OG is playing elite two-way basketball. And of course, Jalen Brunson. I shouldn't forget Josh Hart. Josh Hart is just doing whatever the team needs of him, like he's always done. Swiss Army knife. And then led by Jalen Brunson, where even if he's not scoring, I think he had like 2 points in the first half of game 2. He's finding a way to still impact the game, had a career high 14 assists in that game and closed it out when it needed to be. So this whole Knicks team has bought into their roles, whereas the Cavs look like they're ready to go on vacation. Donovan Mitchell, who I will talk about very shortly, like the whole Cavs roster just doesn't look like they want to play basketball with each other anymore. And again, that is a major difference in this series. And then the last thing you need is luck. You still need a little bit of luck because even though I've said all these things about what the Knicks have done and what the Cavs haven't done, if that Sam Merrill 3 at the end of regulation in game 1 just goes in instead of rimming around the rim and coming out, the Cavs go up 1-0 in that series. They steal game 1, and who knows what we're looking at. Maybe they're up 2-1. Maybe they're up 3-0. You never know. So you still need a little bit of luck to win this type of series. And yeah, those are the biggest reasons why I feel the Knicks are up 3-0 and the Cavs look like they're about to make major changes in the offseason, even though they made it to the conference finals for the first time in almost a decade and first time in forever without LeBron James. So yeah, that's my second biggest takeaway. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about from this series is Donovan Mitchell. Look, I am a huge Donovan Mitchell fan. I've been a fan of his since he was a rookie. Came out of Louisville, one of the best rookie seasons I've seen in a while. And that playoff series against the Oklahoma City Thunder, against Paul George, Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, all those guys on the other side of the court, for him to be a rookie and beat those guys in 5 games. In his first playoff series, I was like, okay, I'm in on this guy. This guy is a baller. And he's always showed up in the playoffs. Like, he has more 50-point playoff games than any current player in the NBA. So Donovan Mitchell has always been a great playoff performer. And this is the first time he's made it to the conference finals. He got that little monkey off his back, and I was happy for him. However, this series has showed why he is a B tier level superstar and why he's never been looked at quite as like the upper echelon of guards in the NBA. Because here are his averages in this series. And I'll give him a little bit of grace because I can clearly tell he is not 100% and he's playing through some type of leg injury. You can just look at it and tell. But at this point, nobody is 100%. When you get to late May, early June of the playoffs, everybody is fighting some type of injury. So I can't give him too much of an excuse because he's playing in the games. But in this series, he's averaging 26 points, not bad, but 2.7 assists on 47, 32, 69 shooting splits. The 69 from free throw line is, can't have that. But throw away the stats. There have been way too many instances in these playoffs, not just this series, but the playoffs in general, where for large portions of the game, he has been a non-factor. Like He'll either go to the corner, watch James Harden and Jared Allen or Mobley go in a pick and roll. He's just been way too deferential, for my liking at least, because dog, you're the best player on the team. They go as far as you will take them. And like it doesn't even have to be scoring. Like he doesn't have to score. Like take game 7 against the Pistons, for example. He didn't have a crazy 40-point, 50-point game where he was just scoring a bunch of points. No, he got his team involved. He was facilitating, getting to the paint, dishing out. When it was time to score, when his team needed buckets, he took over in that third quarter. So my point is he can do it. And I saw it. He did it in a major game, in a game 7. But there was too many instances, especially in this series against the Knicks, where it's like, Donovan, they kind of need you. In game 1, he had 29 points. And then when the Knicks went on that crazy run to win the game, coming back down from 22, he didn't score a point for like the last 6 or 7 minutes of regulation and then the whole overtime. So it's stuff like that's preventing him from really elevating, because he has the talent. He's not the greatest defender. Like, I'm not breaking news here, but he's never been the greatest defender. However, his offense has been elite since he's come into the NBA. But I feel like we as fans and media and people who consume the NBA, we've given Donovan Mitchell a lot of passes because, we either blame Gobert or his other teammates in Utah, in Cleveland. We blamed Mobley. We blamed the coach when he had JB Bickerstaff. But for this series, for the Knicks to be down, or for the Cavs to be down 0-3, I have to give a majority of the blame to Donovan Mitchell and how he has not showed up in the moments where his team has needed him. And look, the guy is going to make over $500 million playing basketball. He's engaged to Coco. He's getting married to Coco Jones this summer. So he's won life. He's, one of the best players in the NBA. Like he's won at life. Can't really say too much about him, but if he ever wants to be considered like the best or top 2 guards, if he ever wants to be in like the Shea, Luka, now Jalen Brunson is kind of elevated into that conversation. If he ever wants to be there, he needs to find a way to not be so passive and deferential in major moments when his team needs him, because that's what's separating him from those upper echelon guys. But yeah, I'm still a fan of Donovan Mitchell. Hey, some may call this a successful season for him because, he made his first conference finals. So, but, and who knows, maybe I look stupid as hell making this because he'll lead his team to the first 3-0 comeback in NBA history. Not happening, by the way. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Donovan Mitchell, but he deserves the brunt of the blame for his Cavs looking like they're about to get swept in this series. So those are the main takeaways I have from Thunder, Spurs, Knicks, Cavs. We're almost there. Season's almost done. Very bittersweet for me. But yeah, that does it for today's episode, number 10 in the books. Thank you guys for sticking around. Appreciate you guys. Please continue to show that support for the podcast, and we're going to keep running it up. Hopefully you guys enjoy your week. Be safe out there, and I will see you very soon. I'm going to holla at y'all.